Gamers, today we're here to talk about the biggest issue, in my opinion, on what the problem is, if any, in Age of Empires one-on-one games. And actually, to some degree, team games as well. I think that the game is in the best spot right now in terms of balance that we've ever had. I don't know what the win rates say, because we haven't had a tournament in a while, and ladder win rates are completely scuffed. Like I've seen in Conquer, like Ottoman and Mongol have the highest win rate, which is laughable because they're on the bottom side of the civs, not near the top. So I don't pay attention too much to the ladder win rates for Conquer, at least. And I think the balance is in a very good spot. Like most of the players I've talked to right now say that, Rus is the best civ, but after that, like more or less the civs are the same. Maybe like some civ is slightly weaker, but I feel like throughout AOE4 we've always had like very one-sided matchups. Like if you remember HRE versus Delhi, which is now a completely normal matchup, but it used to be very HRE favored. You used to have these matchups that are just like, oh, I guess I got that, sucks for me, I got like 40% winner in that matchup or something like that. So I think the balance has been better than we've ever had, and we got a lot of different units, which is great. So thumbs up for that. Now, balancing, I'm going to talk specifically about gameplay. I'm not going to talk about like, bugs or whatever. I'm talking about gameplay specifically. So I think the biggest problem right now and the biggest problem in the future in AOE4 are the maps. I think that you can always fix balance, you can always adjust things, but there are some things that you can fix with maps and not balance, and that you can influence in the game in a positive way. So for example, we've had like issues for the past year and a half that hasn't really been addressed in any way, but we have had issues with split map scenarios on some maps. And we've had issues of like games that just don't end. Like once the game goes past 40 minutes, it's just fighting into each other and just kind of never ending fights and yada yada. And there's been a lot of discussion recently that I've seen like within the pro community, like talking with devs as well. It's like, how do we change that? What do we nerf? What do we buff? And Marine Lord is one of the people who thinks this as well, but a lot of these things can be fixed through maps and not through balancing. Like technically you can balance stuff, you can nerf and trade or nerf food gathering, reduce amount of wood or whatever, but you can also keep all of that and just create maps that promote different kind of gameplay. So we've had maps that are just guilty of split map scenarios, right? Like, and everyone knows who those maps are. Mountain Pass, for example, we don't play that map anymore, but that map, it's always a split map because of obvious reason. There's one attack path in the middle and people just camp, right? So that promotes bad gameplay. I think maps like High View, it's very, very easy to split the map, and at high level, you see High View go long times very often. Same with the Pit. And a lot of people, whenever they bring up like, late game you can't kill your opponent or the trade is too strong, it's always those two maps that are being named. Oh, have you seen that game that was 1.5 hours on the Pit? Have you seen that 2 hour game that was on the High View? Have you seen that hour game that was on the Pit? It's always the same thing. You would think that, because the Pit, you can understand why it's easily split because of the way that the map layout, right? But the High View is a bit more open, but for whatever reason, maybe it's the back trade, maybe it's sometimes the wood line spawn towards the middle, so you just wall it off and that's it. But it ends up in split map scenarios very, very, very often. Now, on the other side, there's some maps that always provide good games. And, one of those maps is Dry Arabia. Now, why is Dry Arabia so loved and why is Dry Arabia so played, even though technically you could split the map and that's it? There are multiple reasons for this, and Dry Arabia is like the most standard map, but it provides for good gameplay always, and there's multiple reasons for that. The market doesn't spawn dead in the corner every time, and I hope it should never spawn dead in the corner. So if you look on this screenshot, the market is kind of So the map, the market is here, right? So if you do a trade, it's not as good. Sometimes the market spawns here, sometimes the market spawns here, sometimes it spawns here. So the trade is rarely strong, right? It's rarely strong. It's always like scuffed in some way. Either it's close to the middle or it's halfway or whatever. Second, there's another victory condition, and that is sacred sites. Sacred sites are accessible for both players, and sacred sites win happen all the time on Dry Arabia, which prevents stalemates and give multiple objectives for the opponents to go for and end games. And on top of that, number 3, the wood lines on Dry Arabia rarely spawn towards the middle. They always kind of spawn to the side like this, so the middle is very open. So for example, sometimes if this was high view, the wood line would spawn like here, and you do a wall, big wall, and that's it, you're done. But on Dry Arabia, you actually need to do like an omega wall across the map, unless you want to connect it to the smaller wood lines, which still makes for a massive wall. So it's a lot harder to wall off. The sacred sites victory is a lot more possible, and the trade is kind of scuffed, which is why Dry Arabia is literally the best map we have right now, and we have had since the start, and it never went out of the map pool, and it probably never will. It's just a very well designed map. The boars are not close to your base, the big golds are not close to your base. It forces opponents to go out on the map and engage with the opponent, engage with the map. Amazing. Now, but high view on the other side has if you spawned here, let's say, right, and the opponent spawned here, one sacred site is here, one sacred site is here. So the sacred site victory on high view is not possible. It's just not possible, and that is a big issue, okay? So first, the tree lines can split the map a lot easier, depending on when they're spawned in high view. Problem number 1. Problem number 2, sacred site win is just not a thing on high view. I don't think I've ever seen a high view sacred site win at a high level, because one of the sacred sites is literally behind your base. And then number 3, the trade posts are always in the same spot, which is the corner behind your base, which promote that camping and late games to give you free gold income. So you might think that high view and Dry Arabia are similar maps, but these small things makes one map great and makes the other map terrible. Now, I opened, so this is like all the maps we've had in tournaments. I think there's more maps, but these are the maps that are on Wikipedia. So I opened these ones. So I want to give you guys some more examples of, in my opinion, well-designed maps and maps that have potential or we had in tournaments and they turn out great. So obviously Dry Arabia. Coastal is another map that, and listen, not everyone likes water, and I understand that. I just want to kind of connect the dots on what the good and bad maps are comparatively. So I think map like Coastal is extremely hard to play. Now, splitting this map is also very hard because you don't have enough wood to just wall off the whole map. You got to make ships, you got to make units. It's very hard to kind of split that. You're fighting on water, you're fighting on land. There's multiple objectives. And in that fashion, you cannot just split the map and the map goes for an hour here. It's just not going to happen. I can't remember if Coastal had markets, but if it did, even if they're here and you build a trade here, it's not that long of a trade route. Like, it's not a full trade route. So again, it's not as good. So this is an example of a map that very rarely gets split by the players and the game goes super, super long. Dry River is another map that promotes, this map was in tournaments as well, is another map that promotes a lot of aggression, and it promotes a lot of early gameplay with the little, it has 5 pawns and each pawn has 5 fish, if I remember correctly. Or it has 6 pawns, each pawn has 6 fishes, shoreline. So there's no deep water fish, you go for that early boost in food. But this map has no market. And this is very important. This map has no market. You cannot play this map forever. You will run out of resources. There's not as much wood as some of the other maps. So not only you cannot trade, but you also will not be able to get infinite wood like on the pit or on the high view that just has God knows how many resources as far as wood goes on that map. So this promotes very early gameplay. The sacred sites, again, they're not all on the middle. One is on your side, one is opponent's side, one is in the middle. But because there's no market, you don't need to have these like sacred sides that are just dead center and you can go for sacred side win, because there's other things that force the map to end earlier or force the opponents to attack. Because if you're running out of gold, right, you can't just be like, well, I guess I'm just gonna trade, and then you camp. If you're running out of gold and opponent has gold, you have to like all in attack into it, which is great gameplay in my opinion. Then we have map like Escarpment. Now this map I've only played a very few times. I think this was in Blade's tournament, if I'm not mistaken, Conqueror's Cup, right? And this map I haven't gotten to playing it too much, but again, it has multiple things that make it great. It has a common objective, which is water. So on start, let me go like this. So on start, you guys fight over this water. Instant action, instant aggression. The wood lines, there's only 2 wood lines next to your base. Then the third wood line is far away from your base. You cannot just wall, you cannot just wall this massive fucking land, because here you're basically walling off next to your opponent. If you try to wall off like this, again, it's just a massive wall to get through. Third, you have sacred sites that are all in one spot. Now, this is debatable whether it's like great or not. Maybe the sacred site should be more split, maybe not. But the point is, the sacred site of victory is possible. And once again, there are multiple objectives for both you and your opponent to go on the map. And I think this map has no markets either, which I think is great. So I wouldn't mind if there was a market here, because it's kind of close to both players, so you can stop trade pretty easily. But I don't mind this map not having markets. But another example of promoting aggression, promoting objectives, yada yada. 4 Lakes. Now this is a map that, again, it's another map that's very hard to play. The markets are in awful spots. So this is not the 4 Lakes on the ladder. These are 4 Lakes, the original tournament map. And I think 4 Lakes got fixed recently, didn't it? But either way, the sacred side win possible. Trade, kind of ass. It's kind of on the middle of the map. And then you also have the back economy of fishes. And you can go for that objective too. So again, it's great. It promotes a lot of things. You kind of see the same pattern. You have a map like Golden Heights that has a trade market. I know it doesn't say here, but it has a trade market here. It's very hard to trade because it's kind of in between you and your opponent, has a common goal, yada yada. Now, water maps might not be for everyone, and you notice a lot of these maps are water maps. So we can move on to the map that is another pure land map. And whenever I played it, this was in a few tournaments. It was in Red Bull Road to Walhalla, I think, and Red Bull event, right? And I thought it was a great map. There's not a lot of land maps that you can make that are like different than Dry Arabia, but I thought that this map was great because sacred sites win is possible. There is no trade, but you're actually very close to your opponent. Now, it might not look like it, but you and your opponent are very close. And another thing, which is another objective, the wood line, if you look, you have this crap wood line next to your base. Oh, sorry. You have this crap wood line next to your base. I can actually zoom in like this a little bit. You have this crap wood line next to your base, one normal big wood line, and then the next wood lines, you gotta go far away. And if you compare it to the other maps that I was mentioning, they either have infinite resources, terrible sacred sites, or no objectives to go for because there's too many things close to your base. So there's no reason for you to go out on the map. Then we have Holy Island. Now there's no picture for Holy Island, but a lot of you have probably seen it. You know what the Holy Island map is. It's chaotic. It's instant action. You have to go on water. You have to go on land. Again, not everyone likes water maps, so that's all right. You have Kawasan. Again, it's a map that has mutual objectives. Berries. They're not spread out across the map. So it's like you have your berries, I got my berries. There's like 8 berry patches, I think, or 6 berry patches right in the middle. So whoever gets the control of the middle, it's kind of like a pseudo sacred site where it's not quite sacred site victory, but if you get access to that many berries with a keep or a tower or whatever, you are in a massive lead. So you can't just let your opponent take it. You have Lipany. Again, it's probably the most standard map aside from Dry Arabia. And for very similar reasons to Dry Arabia. Now, the latter Lipany has some wild spawns, but the tournament Lipany that we have been playing on does not have these massive mountains walling off everything. So the tournament Lipany is a lot better compared to the latter one. Because the latter one, like I said, sometimes it spawns like a mountain pass. It's really bad. Rocky Canyon, one of my favorite maps. For those that don't know, this map, it's like the Sacred Sites and Market are kind of safe. Like Sacred Site victory on this map is kind of hard to achieve, but the map is so wide and it's so hard to completely wall it off, because most of the time you cannot attach your walls to these massive, mountains or massive wood lines, and it's very hard to split the map unless you have massive advantage. If you don't have an advantage, you're gonna take so many resources to do all of that. Great map. Now, recently, one of the newest additions to the tournament map pool is regions, and this map is very unique in a way that you have your wood lines, back at home, everything's normal. On the middle, there are 3 big golds, 2 big stones. One side has all the berries, the other side has all the deer, and then there's the sacred side. So there's multiple objectives again to go for, and I have never seen this map end in stone walls and wood walls and 50-minute games. Why? Well, just like some of the other maps, this map has no market, so you have to go for the middle. So this plays out like King of the Hill, maybe even too much like King of the Hill, where it's too focused in the middle, but not having these like massive amounts of wood lines and not having these neutral markets, in my opinion, makes a lot of the maps a lot better and a lot playable. And then last but not least, a map that is a bit wild, but in my opinion a lot better than a lot of the maps we have currently, is Canal. If you haven't played this map, you start in the corner, you have tiny wood line, then the next wood lines are like here and here. And basically there's some shoreline fish on this side and on this side, and this water connects all the way to the opponent's base. So immediately you get water action. Now this map has 2 neutral markets. One is here, and it has 4 sacred sites. So even though this map is a little bit wild, and a lot of people, I can see someone molding in the chat for Canal, a lot of people don't like it because it's a hybrid map. It's a very difficult map to play. That's not the point. The point is, this map never sees split map scenarios. And a lot of the problems that I have said from earlier, like, I mean, let me open one of the guilty maps, Altai, which we don't have a photo of it, but French Pass, Mountain Pass. These maps are notorious for bad gameplay in long games. French Pass, safe trade, easy walls because of the mountains. You have Mountain Pass that, like I said earlier, is just literally crossing in the middle and that's it. Then you have Hill and Dale, which, to be honest, recently did get improved because you used to have a big gold in your main base. Now you only have 1 small gold and then you have to go out. So I do think that Hill and Dale is not as bad as it used to be, but it still ends in a lot of campy games with walls and keeps and stuff like that. And then you have Altai, which, if you guys played AOE4, Altai has massive fucking mountains. Massive. And it's so easy to wall off this map. And then it's like you're on your side, the enemy's on their side, and So a lot of the stuff, like I said earlier, that people are complaining about, which, rightfully so, where the games take too long, you can't push your opponent, is, in my opinion, because a lot of it is because of the maps. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't balance the game, right? I'm not saying stop balancing the game. I'm not saying that, trade or food economy is not too strong. I'm saying there are other ways to nerf these things without necessarily, like, always chasing the carrot with balancing stuff. Like Black Forest, obviously it's going to end in like long games because it's just very narrow and you don't have objectives on the map. Right? You have golds in your base, you have big stones in your base, you have fish in your base. You don't need to go out on the map, right? So more than anything, what I would like to see in AOE4, not just for the tournaments, because I do think for the tournaments, most of the time we have good maps. What I would like to see is for the ladder maps to be more open. Now, if, for example, the ladder has 11 maps, I would love if we had one tiny map, maybe not, you know, what's it called, mountain clearing kind of crazy, maybe even that. But I would like to have like a wild map like that, have 2-3 hybrid maps, because I know that people are not big fans of the hybrid maps. And I would love to have like 6, 7, 8 just open maps, just standard maps, stuff like Dry Arabia, stuff like Lipany, but hopefully the improved version. Then some of the other maps that I mentioned, let me see where they are. Like map like Dry River would be a great hybrid map. Gorge would be a great map to have on the ladder, because it's just a standard open map that has some kind of different gameplay to it, right? Rocky Canyon, I think, would be a great map. This map has only been in tournaments, but I feel like people would love playing on it if we had it on the ladder. Is Basin any good? Basin, in my opinion, starts out okay, but it suffers from the same problem as Highview. It feels like a super open map, but it turns into massive walls, and you have back trade, and you cannot go for Sacred Side Victory because one of the Sacred Sides is in your base. What if you design a map on stream? I did design a map, actually. The map, let me actually see if I can. Oh, I can't download it. It's a mod because the servers are offline. But I did design a map, and I did try to put it into tournaments for whatever reason. I mean, maybe they didn't think it was good, but I actually really liked it. I thought it was good, but yeah, that's kind of the rant that I wanted to go for. And I'm always obviously excited for you know, new patches, new changes, rebalancing, retouching, redesigning civs or whatever, and I think that's great. That's what keeps the game fresh. But I really hope that in tournaments we have more maps that are focused on the things that I talked about just now, and especially if we can get that to the ladder as well for everyone, not just in tournaments. I think stuff like sacred sites in your base should just not exist. I don't think back markets should ever exist. Neutral markets should never be in the back of your base. At the very least, it needs to be some kind of risk you going for neutral markets. And I would also, to be honest, like to see more maps with no markets at all. I think that would be great. But that's something I wanted to discuss, and hopefully people are excited to see the new changes and all that, because we are going to have a big patch, I'm assuming, at the end of this season. But I also hope that people kind of start maybe you know, asking for maps that are kind of geared towards these things. And by the way, I'm talking about ranked gameplay, right? I would love at the same time if Quick Match had more of the wild maps, you know, have stuff like you know, fucking Boulder Bay, even Archipelago, you know, Baltic, Mega Random, King of the Hill, Mongolian Heights. Why not, right? I think Quick Match, people go to warm up. They don't necessarily need to play on the super try-hard maps, but I think in general it provides for better experience for everyone if we have better maps in the first place. So that's it. If you're watching this on YouTube, I want to thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one. I'm excited for, you know, the future changes, the future maps. Hopefully we've had a break from tournaments for like 2 months. I'm assuming we're gonna see some new maps. Hoping, praying. Check me out on Twitch. I'm probably live right now. Twitch gamers, let's keep going.